Hey everybody, John at IPT Trans. Today we're doing a valve body removal and installation on a Toyota AB60E. Alright, the first thing we have to do is take off the transmission pan. Filter comes off next. There's an O-ring that you want to make sure you don't lose. Now we have a bunch of solenoids that we have to take out. The best way to do that is to stick a awl or a pick in between the connector and the plug and just push it on out. Also take note that you're going to have two that are similar. This black connector goes into the black solenoid. These are a little bit different of a style. They have a pin that you have to depress to take them out. This is the same style as the other ones, as is this one. Now you also have two temperature sensors, one of which has orange wires. The one with the orange wires always goes to the passenger side of the vehicle. They have a little bracket holding them in. We can take the wire out of its brackets, move everything off to the side. There's a detent spring that we have to remove to access these two valve body bolts. Then we remove the rest of the valve body bolts. Just something else to note, these 10mm bolts that hold the solenoids in do not need to be removed. Now we're going to take the valve body out. We've removed all the bolts. If you're in the car, obviously you're going to have to hold this to fight gravity. We have it the other way. So, also you're going to have to get this manual valve rod out of this rooster comb as you're taking it down. Underneath, if you're doing this under the car, some of this stuff is going to fall out on you. There's a check valve and spring, and there's 4 accumulator pistons. You want to keep the appropriate springs with their pistons. On some of these, if you send us the valve body, we're going to send you different springs back with it. But when people send the valve bodies, I like them to send all their original stuff so I could see what's in there to begin with. You want to bag them all up separately. Another thing you need to be aware of is underneath the valve body, there are 3 rubber seals that are probably going to fall out on you. Underneath those, there's 3 oil delivery sleeves that are probably not going to fall out, but just a picture so you can be aware of them in case they do and how they go back in. There are 2 short ones, and the third one is a little bit longer. Now, when you put this back together, you're going to want to put some transmission assembly lube, which we supply with the valve bodies, to hold these seals back in. Because if these fall out, you're going to have big problems. This transmission is not going to work right. So you're going to grease them in there pretty well. Accumulator pistons will go back in. You can't really put them in the wrong position. They only fit in one way. And when you get them back from us, they're going to be packaged with the springs that belong with them. Lastly, we put in our check ball and spring. And if you're doing this in the car, you really have to load this up with grease to keep it from falling down while you're putting the valve body back in. And then put our valve body back on. Being careful to engage the manual valve into the booster comb. It should look like that when you're done. Okay, there's going to be 4 different length valve body bolts when you put this back together. There's 2 real long, 2 a little bit shorter, 4 shorter than that, and then a bunch that are very short. We also have this very short one that is to hold the temperature sensor in, and we're going to have our detent spring, which is 2 pieces that sit on top of each other like that. Okay, the 2 very long bolts are going to go in this hole here. And this hole. The 2 that are a little bit longer, shorter rather, going to go here and here. The next 4 are going 1, 2, 3. The 4th one holds the temperature sensor in, but I'm just going to put it in hand tight for alignment. The rest of the bolts are all short and the same. But something else to be aware of is there are 2 bolt holes that are smaller than the other ones, which are here and here. Those 2 bolts must be tightened before any of the other ones, because they're going to give you perfect alignment. If you tighten the other ones first, these bolts might not go in right. Now we're going to torque all these bolts to 80 inch-pounds. This one we still have loose because we didn't put our sensor in yet. And once again, our orange sensor is going to go to the passenger side, and that gets a real short bolt. And the one with the blue wire goes to the other side. This has to kind of engage into the temperature sensor. Put our bolt back in. And we torque it. This other one is not really necessary to torque, but you can if you want to. Now we put our connectors back in. Fasten the harness into its bracket. And just be careful that you're putting them back in the right spot. White goes to gray. Black goes to black. Green to green. Black. Blue. Green. Black. Then finally we have our white going to a blue solenoid and our black plug going to a black solenoid. And this all fits in there like that. What I also like to do is once I have everything plugged in, I like to double check that they're definitely seated. So you don't want to fill this thing up with oil and then be setting codes because you have an open solenoid. Next, we put our detent spring on. Again, not necessary to torque, but you can if you like. Filter is next. I'm going to lube up the filter O-ring and the valve body. And be careful to ease this down correctly because you don't want to tear that O-ring. 4 filter bolts. Same thing, not necessary to torque, but it doesn't hurt either. Make sure our wires are all where they belong. This one happens to go under the valve body plate. Sorry about that. Okay, another thing that we need to note is when you fill this up, there's a level plug here. This one's a drain plug, the 14mm, but the 5mm Allen is your level plug. And how that works is underneath the pan, once your fluid level gets up to here, it starts pouring out of that plug, okay? Which is going to make your trans fluid level about here in the pan. And when we're doing that, we're putting our fluid through here, which is a 24mm head bolt. We have a device that we use to fill this up in an electric pump, which I'm going to demonstrate in another video. But anyway, you're going to fill this up. You're going to want to put about 4 quarts in, start the engine, remove the 5mm Allen, and continue to pump fluid in. You're probably talking about 9 or 10 quarts until this thing is full, at which point it'll start trickling out of the check plug. Okay, this is what we've been using to fill them up. These pumps are available on eBay. I believe you have to search for fluid transfer pump or oil transfer pump. The spackle pails that are graduated are available at Sears Hardware. And we essentially pump fluid through this hole where the 24mm head plug was taken out of until it runs out of the check plug. And you know, these pumps pump the fluid out of there pretty good, so this takes a pretty hard job and makes it only take about 5 minutes.